All right, so buckle up, because today we're diving deep, really deep, into 6th century Arabia.
Ooh, sounds intense.
It is, trust me. We're going way beyond the typical textbook stuff about Muhammad. You guys send in excerpts from Muhammad's untold struggles, what they never told you about his journey, and we're going to really unpack it.
This is one of those books that really makes you rethink what you thought you knew.
Right. So forget everything you think you know about prophets and revelations for a second. We're talking about Muhammad the man before all that. Like, picture this. 6th century Mecca. Crazy, bustling trade center, camels everywhere, exotic goods, but also
Chaotic, a lot of tension bubbling under the surface, right?
Totally. We're talking tribal rivalries, power struggles, a whole society kind of obsessed with idols.
And that's where Muhammad comes in. Not some warlord or prince, which you might expect, but a merchant.
And not just any merchant. The book makes it clear he was known for being honest, having integrity. That's huge in this environment, don't you think?
It says a lot about his character. Like, people already trusted him, relied on his word.
Exactly. But even with that success, he's still wrestling with, I don't know, this kind of unease about the world around him.
Who hasn't felt that? Seeing the injustice, the inequality, it makes you crave something more.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's where the book talks about him escaping to the caves near Mecca, especially the caves of Hira.
Gotta be a huge contrast. Imagine that. The chaos of the marketplace, and then this total solitude.
And that's where everything changes. Not just a quiet reflection. We're talking about a full-on encounter with the angel Gabriel. Like the book describes it so vividly. Total darkness, blinding light, and this booming voice.
And that voice is telling him to read, which is interesting
Because he couldn't read. Talk about pressure. Imagine that, being commanded to read when you can't even, read.
Exactly. It's this message that goes beyond language, something so powerful it hits him on this other level.
And who does he turn to in that moment? His wife, Khadija.
And she doesn't freak out or anything. This is where you see how crucial her support is.
She comforts him, believes him. Right then, she becomes his first convert.
Talk about a strong woman. She saw something in him, something the world didn't get yet.
And that's just the beginning, because that revelation, that encounter, it's going to set everything else in motion.
No, going back from that, he's not just the guy with a conscience anymore. He's got a mission, and it's a big one.
Yeah.
And that mission, well, let's just say it wasn't going to win him any popularity contests in Mecca.
Right. Like, talk about a tough crowd.
Yeah.
So he's having this massive revelation, but it's not just for him to ponder quietly, is it?
Oh no, he's told to share it. And knowing what we know about Mecca back then, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, so break it down for me. We're talking about a society deeply rooted in idol worship.
Yeah.
This isn't just about adding a new god to the mix, right?
Not even close. This is about a complete overhaul. Imagine telling people to abandon their idols, the things they've always believed and the things their entire lives revolve around. It's like, whoa, hold up a minute.
Especially in Mecca. I mean, this is the home of the Kaaba. People came from all over to worship there.
Exactly. It was the center of their world, both spiritually and economically. The Quraysh, the guys in charge, they were making a killing off of it.
So challenging the idols, it's a direct hit to their power, their wallets.
Bingo. It's not just some abstract theological debate. It's a threat to their entire way of life. These guys weren't going to take this lying down.
So who are the brave souls who decide to follow Muhammad despite all this?
It's actually a really diverse group. You've got Khadija, of course, his rock, and then close friends, family, people like Abu Bakr.
But then you've also got Bilal, right?
Yeah.
A slave who chooses this new faith, even though it means facing some pretty horrific stuff.
The book really drives home how powerful those early conversions were. These weren't just folks looking for a change of pace. They were risking it all.
Yeah, that's serious conviction. But the Quraysh, they weren't just going to let this slide. How'd they try to shut it down?
Well, at first, it was all about discrediting Muhammad, trying to make him look like a madman, a fool, someone not to be taken seriously.
Oh, the old smear campaign.
Yeah.
Classic.
Right. And then they hit him where it hurt. The wallet. Boycotts, isolating them, trying to starve them out.
So the pressure's mounting, things are getting really intense. And then to top it all off, you've got what the book calls the Year of Sorrow.
Brutal time. First, Khadija dies. I mean, talk about a devastating loss. His wife, his confidant, his biggest supporter, gone.
After everything they'd already been through. That's rough.
And as if that wasn't enough, his uncle, Abu Talib, who'd been protecting him politically, he passes away that same year.
So he's lost his anchor, his protector. You'd think he'd be completely broken at this point.
And that's what's amazing. The Quraysh, they see an opening, right? So they offer in this deal. Power, wealth, position, everything.
All they have to do is
renounce his faith, stop preaching, basically walk away from everything he'd sacrificed, everything he believed in.
wow. What a choice. Everything he could ever want in exchange for his integrity. So what did he do? I can't even imagine being in that position. It's like all your material dreams offered on a silver platter, but at what cost? So what did he do?
He walked away, turned them down flat. Can you believe it? After all that hardship, he chooses his faith, his integrity over everything.
Talk about a power move. But okay, let's be real. It's not looking good for him at this point. He's lost his support system. He's got powerful enemies. It feels like he's hit a wall.
And this is where things take a turn, a big one. See, word had gotten out about Muhammad, his message, his character, and way up north in a city called Yathrib, later known as Medina, people were listening.
Hold on, another city, miles away. What's the connection?
Medina was a mess. Think tribal feuds, constant power struggles, the works. They were desperate for something to unite them.
And they saw that in Muhammad.
In him and his message, they saw a way out of the chaos, a chance for peace. So yeah, it wasn't just a random safe haven.
This was strategic. This is where we see Muhammad's leadership shining through.
Absolutely. This is the hijrah, the migration from Mecca to Medina. Dangerous journey, but also brilliant. He's not just running, he's building something new.
And that's how Medina becomes the first Islamic state.
Exactly. And it's important to remember this isn't about conquest, about land. It's about creating a different kind of society. Even people who didn't convert to Islam, they had rights protection under this new system.
Well, that's kind of radical for that time period. But I'm guessing the whole conflict with Mecca, that wasn't just over, was it?
Sadly, no. There were battles, clashes between Mecca and Medina. But these weren't just about territory or power. They tested Muhammad, his followers, in a whole different way. First, you've got the Battle of Badr.
Okay, I've heard of this one. It's a big deal, right?
Huge. Muhammad and his forces, they're totally outnumbered, but they win. Decisive victory. It solidified this belief that, yeah, God was on their side.
I bet that was a morale booster for sure.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing from there, right?
You know it never is. The Battle of Uhud, that was a tough loss for Medina. Muhammad himself was injured. Lots of his close companions, they didn't make it.
After the High Badr, that must have been crushing.
It really tested their faith, forced them to reconcile their beliefs with the very real danger they were facing. But they didn't give up. They learned, they adapted, and then came the Battle of the Trench.
Okay, refresh my memory on this one.
So the Quraysh, they make one last big push to take down Medina. But Muhammad and his people, they'd learned from their mistakes. They dug this trench around the city, a defensive strategy that basically neutralized the Meccan cavalry.
Wow, so they outsmarted them.
In a way, yeah, it was a victory of resilience, of strategic thinking. But here's the real kicker. Years of conflict, bloodshed, you name it. And finally, Muhammad returns to Mecca. But get this, he's not leading a conquering army out for revenge. He goes in peacefully.
No way. I mean, can you imagine the guy they exiled, persecuted, he comes back and he's got the power to take over, but he doesn't.
He goes straight to the Kaaba, the heart of it all, and destroys the idols. But what he does next, that's the truly amazing part.
What's up?
He forgives his enemies, all of them. The people who had tried to crush him, silence him, they were forgiven. Seriously, that's, wow. It's like the opposite of what we expect, even now. You'd think after all that, there'd be some payback.
But that's the thing about Muhammad, about his message. It wasn't about power or revenge. And that's what he makes clear in his farewell sermon, which he delivers towards the end of his life.
So it's not like a victory lap listing off all his accomplishments.
Not even close. It's about the future.
No.
He lays out his vision for the kind of society he wants Islam to build. Equality, justice, compassion, values that resonate even today, centuries later.
It's powerful stuff.
So, after this deep dive, what's the takeaway for us? I mean, we're talking about events from over 1,000 years ago, but it still feels relevant.
Absolutely. For me, it's a reminder that true leadership isn't about force or dominance. It's about standing up for what you believe in, even when it's hard, even when you face setbacks. And maybe more importantly, it's about choosing forgiveness, even when you have every reason not to.
Forgiveness, compassion, those are pretty powerful weapons, especially in today's world. Well, folks, we've just scratched the surface of an incredible life, an incredible story. And that's the beauty of these deep dives, isn't it? They spark more questions, more curiosity. So keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next one.